My name is Paul Kaplan, and this is another talk in the series on Judeo-Christian resurgence. Most of the material in this was researched for the book God versus the Left. And if this talk interests you, you can get the big picture from this book, which is available from Amazon. And please don't forget to hit the subscribe button in case someone decides to ban these videos and we have to fall back on email. And lastly, if you want to help to establish a godly credo and defeat the left, then please visit our Patreon site and give us a bit of a hand with a few dollars. So let's begin with the seemingly strange statement that we Jews have no rights to Jerusalem, and we have no rights to the land of Israel, and neither do the Arabs. And why do we have no rights to the land of Israel? Well, Psalm 24 points out that no one has any rights to anything, and no one owns anything. Everything belongs to God. And we Jews will remain in control of the land of Israel only as long as we have the gumption and the moral fiber to hold on to it, and no longer. We've been thrown out twice, and we can be thrown out again. One example of this kind of lack of gumption is the United Kingdom, where for years the British government didn't have the gumption to protect the sovereignty of the country against the inflow of millions of foreigners. And what happened? Well, parts of the country aren't British anymore. That's what happened. And the rest of Britain could go the same way if they carry on in the same way. That's what happens when you don't have any God or any gumption. So let's look at Psalm 24. The earth is the Lord's, and the fullness thereof, the world and they that dwell therein. In other words, the earth belongs to God, and everything in it, and everyone who lives in it. For he hath founded it upon the seas, and established it upon the floods. Who shall ascend into the hill of the Lord? Or who shall stand in his holy place? So who's going to call the shots on any given patch of land? He that hath clean hands and a pure heart, who hath not lifted up his soul unto vanity, nor sworn deceitfully, he shall receive the blessing from the Lord, and righteousness from the God of his salvation. That's who will call the shots. This is the generation of them that seek him and seek thy face, O Jacob. In other words, any generation that seeks after God and seeks after doing right will get those blessings. O Jacob, in other words, are you Jews listening? So if we Jews had any idea of our own scripture, we would long ago have quoted this Psalm 24 to the whole world, telling the whole world that we will never surrender any part of the Holy Land to gangsters, murderers, and thieves who tyrannize over their own people and force innocent children onto the battlefield. If anyone thinks that we will just hand over Israel to such people, those people are off their heads. And if we had any idea of our own scripture, we would long ago have addressed our American Christian supporters on this matter of Psalm 24. And if we had done that, we would have gained overwhelming support for our stance, but instead we blather and splutter and hope that our Christian friends will continue to support us without being 100% sure of why they are doing so. The Jews are generally accepted as the custodians of Scripture, the people who started the whole thing. But instead of being the stewards of everything strong and permanent in Western civilization, we seem to think that the friendship of the left provides us with the security we have been lacking for the last 2,000 years. So American Jews embrace all the leftist rubbish and enrage the millions of godly conservatives who are trying to be their friends. These conservatives are watching the collapse of moral fiber destroying their nation. It seems inexplicable that the Jews embrace the treacherous leftists and are hostile to the much more sane and reliable conservatives who are their real friends and who are the real supporters of the State of Israel. But you can understand this Jewish insanity when you realize that our rabbinate has completely concealed our bedrock values with Talmudic garbage. And amazing as it may seem, the Jewish people don't really understand the difference between right and wrong. We have become completely unhinged because of these Talmudic rabbis of ours. And then we Jews have this stupid doctrine called Tikkun Olam, which is supposed to mean repair the world or something like that. But its meaningless and slack-handed leftist ideas do more to destroy the world than to repair it. As a matter of fact, American Jews actually have no idea how detestable they can be to conservative Americans who are trying to be their friends. If American Jews would only open their eyes to the goodwill that is available from conservative Americans and stop their mindless and infuriating support of the left, they could greatly reduce anti-Semitism or bring it to a stop altogether. But hell no, they won't do that. 2 billion Christians are waiting for us to do something godly and strong, while their own faith is paralyzed before the leftist onslaught against civilization. But what do we do? What do the American Jews do? They go and impeach the President of the United States, who is the best friend that Israel ever had, and then they vote Democrat. Are American Jews brain dead? Well, as long as they tolerate the current god-awful Talmudic and Pharisaic set of rabbis, they will be brain dead. And anti-Semitism will continue to grow until it kills the whole brain-dead damned lot of them. If American Jews had decent clergy, instead of the despicable Talmudic Pharisees, they would soon see that leftism is not the same thing as godliness. The covenant of the 10 Commandments is not a leftist manifesto. But American Jews don't know this because their rabbis have totally swamped the power and simplicity of the national credo under their gigantic sea of rubbish, the Talmud. Now, Jesus was the man who tried to stop this situation from developing 2,000 years ago. But when he did this, the Pharisees got their Roman partners to murder him. And after the murder of Jesus, John carried on with the struggle. And his book of Revelation explains in detail what actually happened and how we are to deal with the situation when we finally get to understand what happened. And boy, he was not fond of the Pharisees or the Talmud. And everything that John said would happen can happen at any moment now. Probably will. Now, Jesus saw this situation a long time ago, 2,000 years ago. And his views were recorded in Matthew 24, verse 22. He summed it up very tightly, and he said, "And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened." In other words, if you carry on as you are, the whole lot of you will get yourselves killed. But because there are a number of sensible people who understand what these Talmudists are doing, for their sake, you won't get yourself killed. In short, the world doesn't hate us just because we are Jews. They hate us because our rabbis and their Talmud have taken away our covenant of the 10 bedrock values, and we very seldom have anything helpful or useful to say about anything. And after we disgrace ourselves with antics such as this useless impeachment of the President of the United States, we then cry anti-Semitism. In other words, we cause it and then we complain about it. In future videos, we will discuss how huge biblical events are about to completely overturn our sorry way of thinking, turn us into the decent and dignified nation we once were, instead of the infuriating rabble we now are. And we can't even keep the loyalty of our own children. That's how bad we are. And the huge change that is about to take place is the event known as the Second Coming. Now, if you generally agree with this video, then you'll certainly agree that this viewpoint must be made known as widely as possible. The enormous power of the internet can and should be harnessed by godly people. And if we do, the left will not be able to do anything about it. However, unfortunately, internet publicity costs money. And if ever there was a case for crowdfunding, it is here and now. And that's why your financial contributions to our Patreon site, however small, can form a mighty river that can move people to action all over the world. You may also, as mentioned before, you may also want to read our book, God versus the Left, which provides the broad biblical picture of where we are and how we need to get out of the mess we're in. And this book is available from Amazon. And finally, your comments and suggestions are just as essential as your financial contributions and will be most welcome here and on our Patreon and Facebook sites. No one can handle something of the magnitude of the Second Coming without the help of tens of millions of decent people. And please don't forget to click the subscribe button, because we'll have no shortage of enemies wanting to ban these videos, and we may have to rely on email to get the videos to you in future. So this is Paul Kaplan signing out and advising you that we will be releasing new videos, approximately one per week as now. So until then, thank you for your time and attention.